And welcome back, everybody. So today's video is going to be all about test hands. This is going to be what I like to call a premium test hand, where we're going to be testing out just some different ways of playing through my Branded Bystial deck. If you are interested in the actual deck list, that is going to be posted in a pinned comment or in the description, because I did make a full deck profile on this. So if you are interested in seeing my deck list, please make sure to check that out. However, for now, we're going to be testing out exactly how this deck is supposed to work. We're going to be playing through no interruptions for the most part, so that you can see what this deck is capable of. However, there might be some instances where we might try to play around certain cards and that kind of thing. So let's try and get right into it. So first things first, I'm going to be shuffling for the very first test hand. So just go ahead. I'm just going to do this, and then I'm going to pretend like my opponent just cut my deck. So there you go. My deck's been cut. Now I give myself 5 cards. Set my deck to the side, and now let's take a look at what I've drawn. Okay, so we could definitely work with this. So over here, I've got Aluber, Fusion Deployment, Bystial Magnemite, Effect Veiler, and I've got Branded Opening. So the first thing that we can do to try and bait something out of our opponents is actually perhaps to go for something like Branded Opening is probably what I would do first. So I would probably end up sending Bystial Magnemite to the graveyard because I want to keep Effect Veiler in case of anything. And then I would end up searching for something like Dramaturge, since this card can bring himself back once he's used for a fusion. Then right after this, I would continue to try to bait Ash Blossom for my opponent. So I would go with Fusion Deployment. And with this card, I would just reveal Grand Gorgonal, which will allow me to search for Blazing Cartesia. And I can just special summon her directly, do it in defense mode. So already we've got 2 monsters, and we haven't even done our normal summon quite yet. So we've got that going for us. Now, these 2 spells are obviously in the graveyard, but over here, we've got a Dramaturge and a Blazing Cartesia. Now we can go ahead and normal summon a Luber. Now with the Luber's effect, we can go ahead and search for Branded Fusion, which is immediately what we're going to try to do. So let's try to grab that. And Branded Fusion is right here. Now I'm not going to bother shuffling because we're definitely going to be going back in there. Now, immediately activate Branded Fusion, now that we don't have any other Ash baits to worry about. And we are actually going to throw Fallen of Albaz, and we're going to throw Dark Magician. So that way we can go ahead and make Lubellion. Now, I take back what I said earlier about wanting to keep Effect Veiler in my hand, because that just won't be possible. So I want to activate Lubellion's effect, which means that I have to pitch for cost, and that is going to allow me to shuffle some cards back. Now, I want to be able to make, I want to be able to make a Red-Eye Stark Dragoon, so I'm going to send these guys back to the deck. So they're going to be shuffled. I'm just going to put them in the grave, in the bottom. And then we've got 1 Red-Eye Stark Dragoon over here. So already we have got a pretty good board going on here. And we haven't even activated Cartesia's effect to fuse. So we can go ahead and do that. So let's fuse using these 2 monsters, so Cartesia and Dramaturge, to make Grand Gorgonal. So 2 effects are going to activate at the same time at this stage. And those effects are going to be first, Chainlink 1, Grand Gorgonal, Chainlink 2 for Dramaturge. So Grand Gorgonal, Dramaturge specials himself back onto the field and into attack position, and then we've got Gorgonal's effect. So we can go ahead and send right over here Rimbrum to the graveyard. So now we have sent our monster to the graveyard. However, we still have some more interruptions that we can go ahead and place here for our opponent. So we're definitely not done with our turn. Okay, so I just decided to move things down a little bit so that it's easier to see. And also because I am about to activate Rimbrum's effect in the graveyard, which is going to allow me to target 1 Fallen of Albaz in the graveyard. And then between these two, I can decide which one I want to special summon. And I will special summon Rinbrum in defense, so he's going to be in the extra monster zone. And Fallen the Valbass is going to be banished over here. So this is so far what we've got set up and going on for ourselves. Now I'm going to attempt to enter the end phase, and I'm going to add Blazing Cartesia back to my hand. So what kind of board did we end up on? We ended up on something absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. So we ended up on the Dragoon, and we do have the ability to negate because we do have a discard available to us still. We ended up with Grand Gorgonal if we need to activate that, Dramaturge, which is another negate that some people sleep on, and we've also got another negate coming from Rinbrum himself. So we have got 3 negates set up. One of them is actually an Omni negate, and in case of anything, in case they try to destroy our fusions, we've got access to Branded Opening in the graveyard. Now, obviously, next turn, when your opponent starts special summoning monsters, you can banish Grand Gorgonal to bring out Praskinian. And then you would have an even stronger board going for you, some stronger things going for you. But either way, we ended on a pretty complete board here, which is pretty insane. So let's move on to the second test hand. Alright, so we're going for another shuffle here, and then let's see what this ends up giving us in the end. I'm sure this will be still pretty interesting, but this deck is pretty consistent. Not completely consistent, as in not all of the time, but he usually does pretty well. So then we've got ourselves 5 cards right here. Put the deck to the side. Now let's see what we've got going for us. This is actually not a very good hand, to be completely honest. But what we can do is still try to bait some things from our opponent. So we can do things such as, for example, activate Branded Opening directly to see if we can add ourselves in the Luber. So then we could just ditch one of our triple tactics talents, since we don't need 2, obviously. And we're going to search for a Luber. Then after setting a Luber on the field, we can immediately activate his effect to search for Branded Lost, which should allow for more plays. So we're going to do that. Quick shuffle. And now I'm going to activate Branded Lost. So before I start fusing, I would like to activate Bestial Lubellion's effect. So I will send them to the graveyard so that I can search for one bestial monster. In this case, it will usually be Saronir, since we would like the ability to dump if it comes up. Now, where's Saronir? Right here. Okay. So we've got bestial Saronir here. So in this case, what I'm going to try to do actually is just to go ahead and activate Branded Fusion. So we're going to make it as if everything's just going to go through. So Fallen the Valbass, we're not dealing with Ash at the moment. And then we can go ahead and send Dark Magician again. And that should give us some preparation for sure. So we're going to toss that to the side. And then we are going to summon Lubellion. Okay. So we've got that going for us. Now we could do Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2, discard Saronir, and then we're going to go ahead and search with Branded Lost for one monster. And in this case, we're going to search for Blazing Cartesia, add her to our hand. So we can actually go ahead and make Dragoon by taking Fallen of Albaz here. No, not Fallen of Albaz. We want to keep Fallen of Albaz in the graveyard. So we could take Fallen of Albaz, and frankly, even we can actually send back this Lubellion as well. So that's totally fine. So I'm just going to put this in the middle of the deck. Going to put this where I usually put it in the extra deck. And then that is going to summon us Red Eye Stark Dragoon. So we've already got a Dragoon set up here, which is pretty neat. And we've actually got some other plays that we could go for as well. So we've got Saronir's effect that activates when he's sent to the graveyard, but we needed to wait for all of this to resolve first. So we're going to send, in this case, Branded Retribution to the graveyard, just to have that set up in case of anything. And now, because we do have a Fallen of Valbass in the graveyard, we can just go ahead and special summon Blazing Cartesia, and then begin to fuse. So we can fuse these two away, Aluber and Cartesia, to make Grand Gorgonal. Then with Grand Gorgonal's effect, we can go ahead and send Rinbrum. And then with Rinbrum's effect, we can actually just choose him and choose Follow the Balbaz, banish Follow the Balbaz to special summon Rimbrum, and then that's going to give us some more power still to work with. Now, as for other things that we could do, maybe to try and capitalize on things, I do want to get Branded Fusion back into my hand, so I'm going to go ahead and banish Branded Retribution so that I can add Branded Fusion back to my hand. So we've got that, and I would say that this is a pretty good way of ending. So I'm going to end my turn, and then Blazing Cortesia is going to return to my hand because Rimbrum was sent to the graveyard this turn. So we are going to have this for a hand, which is still pretty neat. Kind of sucks that we didn't get to use Triple Tactics Talent, but that won't always be the case. Either way, still pretty cool. So let's move on to the third test hand. Okay, let me just go ahead and shuffle for this. My opponent's going to cut my deck, and we're going to take 5 cards. Now, so let's see what we've drawn into. So we've got actually quite a few things here. Not the best hand in the world for sure, but something that we can work with. So what we are going to try to do here is the following. Going to try to bait out Ash Blossom as much as possible, activating Bestial Rebellion to search. And we're going to search for Saronir as we usually do. We only run 1 copy of Saronir in this deck because that's really all that we need. So we've got that going for us. Now, in this case, I actually kind of think that maybe I would want to aim for a Mirror Jade instead. So I would probably do Branded Fusion, and then I would take the materials straight from my deck in this case. Whoops. So Follow the Balbaz, and then I would probably toss in Blazing Cartesia instead. I don't think I'm going to go for Dragoon play this time. So we can do that. And that is going to net us with Albion over here. So now with Albion, we do have the effect to fuse. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I would like to fuse by using... I would like to use Tri-Brigade... No. I would like to use the Fallen of Albaz that's in my hand. And then this Albion. No, this one and Tri-Brigade Mercurier, actually. So I will use those two to go ahead and to make Lubellion. So we've got that. So now we've got Chainlink 1 and then Chainlink 2 with Mercurier. So Mercurier activates first. Now I'm going to go ahead and activate and add another Blazing Cartesia to my hand, because that way I will be able to do some fusions now that Albaz is already in the graveyard. Now, I did forget to pitch for cost, but I would have ditched Bestial Saronir either way, so there is that. And now this is going to resolve. So we are going to shuffle back Rebellion, and we're going to shuffle back Fallen the Balbaz from the banish zone, as a matter of fact. So just put him in the bottom. And then we are going to get Mirror Jade, which is pretty cool. So we've got Albion and Mirror Jade on the field. Now, what else are we capable of doing? Well, there is Saronir's effect, which is going to trigger now. And we're going to toss in Branded Retribution so that we have something in the graveyard to help us recur some resources. So Branded Retribution is going to get tossed in there. So now, what I'm going to do is the following. I am going to tribute my Albion to summon Bestial Lubellion. Then, with Lubellion's effect, I'm going to go ahead and activate Branded Lost directly from my deck. So I'm going to place it here. And now, because we have a Fallen of Albaz in the graveyard, I can actually go ahead and special summon Blazing Cartesia. Now with Blazing Cartesia, I'm going to fuse using Lubellion, and I'm going to make Grand Goignal. So 2 things are going to happen. We've got Chainlink 1 and Chainlink 2. So with Chainlink 2, first I'm going to go ahead and add myself a monster. I'll make it probably, actually, I think it might be a good idea to add Mercurier this time around, because we do have a Mirror Jade already that's live. So that's going to come in handy, I'm sure, and we don't have any other hand traps either. And now, Grand Goignal's effect is going to trigger, which is going to be to send one monster to the grave from the extra deck. So now we are going to activate Rimbrum's effect, and let's see, take Fallen to Valbaz, banish Fallen to Valbaz to summon Rimbrum, and then we have got a negate, and we've got another negate in hand, and we've also got Mirror Jade for his quick effect, and we've got Grangoidnal for his own quick effect. I'm going to go ahead and set Super Poly actually to make sure that I still have some kind of defense, and I'm going to keep Tri-Brigade Mercurier in my hand. So the end phase is going to come, so two things are going to happen. First things first, we're going to do Chain Link 1 and Chain Link 2. So Albion is going to trigger first, which means that we are going to go ahead and, let's see, should I throw in a Branded in red? No, I should not, because there aren't any red targets. So instead, I'm just going to go ahead and toss in, I would say, maybe one Branded Opening for the next turn. And then I would just add Cartesia back to my hand. So here we've got Super Poly, we've got Branded Opening as well. So we've got some discard targets here. We've got a negate in hand. We've got a lot of things going for us over here. I think that this still turned out to look pretty awesome. So let's move on to number 4. So far we have been getting some pretty consistent hands, I would say. I mean, always assuming that we are going uninterrupted. So now, this time, I would say that we're going to try to go for a play where we end up getting Ash. So you could see how badly that can actually hurt the deck, and maybe some ways that we can play around it depending on what we have in hand. So let's see what we end up drawing. Let me just shuffle that again, and then my opponent cuts my deck. Going to take 5 cards, and now let's move on. So this is going to be our hand. I would say this hand is not going to be very optimal whatsoever. So this is one of those times where we end up bricking pretty hard, which is very unfortunate. We can't really trigger too much from our opponent to take place, which is kind of a big shame there. So let's do this again. Okay, so let's shuffle. And my opponent cuts my deck. And we take 5 cards. So let's see what we end up getting. Okay, so this time we ended up getting a hand that isn't really as favorable, but this is something that we can work with. So we have a Super Poly, Branded in white, Branded Retribution, Magnemite, and a Luber. So first things first, I'm going to activate a Luber. I'm going to summon him and then activate his effect to search. And I'm obviously going to search for Branded Fusion. It's going to be the first thing that we do. Then we're going to shuffle. Now I'm going to activate Branded Fusion, but I'm going to pretend like my opponent just ashed my Branded Fusion, which is, in this case, it's not going to be too bad because we've got other plays that we could go for. Because, for example, we've got over here Branded in white. So this is another fusion spell. So you could take a Luber and we can take Magnemite. And then we can make something like Masquerade. So we've got a Masquerade that's already been made in case of anything. So this is going to get tossed over. And now we've got 2 cards over here to work with. So that we have a discard, I would say that maybe it would be best if I took Super Poly and set that, and then kept Branded Retribution in my hand. So the fact that Branded Fusion got hit there is something that definitely hurt us, but luckily because we had Branded in white, we were still able to go through some kind of fusion, which is still kind of neat. We ended up going up with a Masquerade. Your opponent is probably going to get rid of that pretty easily. I'm not going to set the Retribution so that I can use Super Poly, so that's going to be my play for the next turn, if anything. So now let's go ahead and move on to the 5th one. So this time we're actually going to try to play around Nibiru instead, because your opponent is definitely probably going to be running that since they're prepared to use that against Kashtira. So let me put this Masquerade back. It doesn't belong here. Now my opponent is going to cut my deck, and then we're going to move on to drawing 5. Let's see what these 5 cards are. Okay. So, again, we're playing around Nibiru here. First things first, I'm probably going to want to activate Allure of Darkness. So I draw 2, and instantly I was going to banish Magnamut, but I'm going to banish Mercurier instead, which is going to allow me to search. So with that, I'm probably going to end up searching for an Albion, perhaps, so that I can toss one Fallen of Albaz later, or even a Retribution of anything. So we've got that. Okay, so now the next thing that we can do is go with summon number 1. So we've got Aluber. And now Aluber's effective search, that's going to get us Branded Fusion. So we've got that going for us. Whoops. So let's see what kind of negate we can set up before anything. Can we set up a Dragoon before your opponent tries to Nibiru you? And I think that the answer is going to be a resounding yes. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and activate Branded Fusion. So with Branded Fusion, I'm going to go ahead and toss the usual, which is going to be Fallen of Albaz, and I'm going to also toss Dark Magician to the graveyard. Shuffle, and then we're going to get Lubellion. And then with Lubellion's effect, so this is summon number 2, we're going to try to pitch something to the graveyard. I think that in this case we can definitely maybe pitch. Do I want to do, because if I have Branded in white, then I can fuse again with that, and I don't have a Retribution down there yet, so I guess I'll do Magnamut. I'll just toss Magnamut inside because I want to use Albion's effect in the hand. So I'm going to throw in Magnamut, and then I'm actually going to use Magnamut and Dark Magician to make Dragoon. So this is going to be the third summon, and we already have a way of stopping Dragoon. Of stopping Nibiru, which is going to be super helpful. So right now we can actually continue playing through this pretty normally, so we can negate just about anything. It's way too late to try to Ash anything at this point now that we have Dragoon set up. So let's see what else we can do with this crazy hand. So with Albion, I'm going to go ahead and toss a Branded Retribution to the graveyard because we already have Albaz in the graveyard, so we don't really need to do that. I'm going to shuffle, going to put Albion at the bottom of the deck, then I draw 1, I drew an Effect Veiler, I have 2 in hand, so I'm going to special summon Blazing Cartesia. And now I think that the move I'm going to want to go for is probably to fuse using Aluber and Cartesia to make Grand Gorgnal. Now with Grand Gorgnal's effect, I can go ahead and send 1 monster, and I will send Rinbrum. Now, there are actually a couple of things that we can do here. We can make a Mirror Jade, but we may not be able to make Rinbrum anymore. So we have to keep that in mind. So that was actually kind of a misplay, but that's okay. So I am, let me think. I'm actually going to use Branded in white to try to make a Mirror Jade instead. So I'm going to take Fallen of Albaz, and I'm going to take Lubellion. I'm going to banish both of them. And this is going to allow me to make a Mirror Jade pretty easily, just like that. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is activate Retribution in the graveyard to give myself Branded Fusion back to my hand, because I think that's going to come in handy for sure. So over here, we've actually got a pretty sick board set up. Now, what I should have done earlier is actually thrown in a Fallen of Albaz when I had the opportunity to do that with Albion, because that way I would actually be able to banish that second Albaz and then bring Rinbrum and then have an even crazier board to work with. And then I would also still have my 2 Effect Veilers in hand to work with, and then Branded Fusion for the next turn. But we've got an Omni Negate, we've got a Negate for extra deck monsters, we got Mirror Jade for goodness sakes. So we have got a lot of great things going for us. But that was just one slight misplay that isn't going to cost us too much. But at the end phase, now we do get Blazing Cartesia back to our hand, so that's neat. So we do have more discard fodder. So let's move on to the next section. So this is going to be our last test hand for this video. So let's see what we can get out of this. We're just going to do a regular shuffle. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because I really just wanted to show you some test hands and some of the things that this deck is capable of doing. So we've got that, and we draw 5. Our opponent cut our deck already, so let's have a look at our hand. This is not too shabby whatsoever, really. So I would say that the first thing I would want to do with this hand, since we have a Branded in White and a Luber, Dramaturge, Bestial Magnamut, and a Fusion Deployment, let's try to bait out an Ash Blossom in case of anything, right? So I would probably want to play Fusion Deployment first to see what they would try to do. Let's get Blazing Cartesia by revealing Grand Guignol over here. So that's how that's going to play out. There we go. Send that to the grave. Now I am going to normal summon a Luber, and then with the Luber I'm going to search. I'm going to search for Branded Fusion, which is right here already. Now I am probably going to try something maybe a little bit frisky. So I think I might actually try to do Blazing Cartesia's effect to fuse. So I'm going to take Dramaturge and Blazing Cartesia to make Grand Guignol. And then Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2, Dramaturge comes back. And then Grand Guignol can send a Rimbrum to the graveyard. So we've got that going for us so far. Now, another thing that we could attempt to do, actually, is now, we should definitely Branded Fusion. So I'm going to activate Branded Fusion, and then I'm going to go for our usual play. So it's going to be Fallen of Albaz, and let's send over, who should I send over? Dark Magician. So let's send over Dark Magician. And then we can go ahead and make some stuff out of that. Or actually, something even better that I just thought about that I would want to make. So I can't send these two to the graveyard, if anything. So that's totally fine. And I am still going to make Lubellion from that. Now, one thing that I can do after summoning Lubellion is actually that I can go ahead and use Bestial Magnamut to pitch him over here for his effect, and then I'm going to go ahead and shuffle back a Luber, and I'm going to shuffle back probably actually Dark Magician. Should I do Dark Magician? Yeah, should probably do, or I could just do Magnamut actually. So I'm going to go ahead and shuffle back Magnamut, so that we can go ahead and make Masquerade number 1. Then, if we want a second Masquerade, all that we have to do is activate Branded in White. So with Branded in White, we can just look at our graveyard and see which cards we can use for that. So we can just go ahead and take Dramaturge, and we can take, well, we actually don't have to take anything from the graveyard. We could just use Lubellion himself over here. So you could take Dramaturge and Lubellion, send them to the graveyard, and then we can go ahead and summon the second Masquerade. So now we've got our super burn damage going on here. So we've got that going on for us. Now another thing that we can do is that we can bring Rimbrum back by targeting Fallen of Albaz and targeting Rimbrum. Then we would banish Fallen of Albaz to summon Rimbrum. And then we've actually got, in the gate, we've got Grand Guignol's quick effect, and we've got 1200 damage per effect activated. Your opponent might pretty much just scoop after this. Actually, that is probably the most likely thing to happen. This is our graveyard at the moment. So if we end our turn here, we would just end up getting Blazing Cartesia back to our hand, so we would have this. But ultimately, we do have a pretty crazy board set up here, and I really like it. So thank you so much for watching this video today. I know that this video was pretty long, but hopefully it was pretty useful when it came to helping you with test hands and that kind of thing, since I know that sometimes some people can be pretty scared of investing into a strategy without knowing if it's something that they would like first. So maybe they would want to see how it plays to some extent before really going a step further. So this is what this was for, and hopefully all of this was very helpful to you. If you did find it to be helpful, please make sure to leave a like, because it really does help in the algorithm. And also, please make sure to comment any of your thoughts, because I really would appreciate it. I'm still working on making some changes to this deck, on tweaking it out a little bit. So I do very much hope to be able to share an update with you guys in due time. Probably not anytime soon, but when that comes. Now, the budget deck profile is still coming. It is still in the works, so do stay tuned for that. And with that said, this has been Francisco from Francisco Ferreira Blogs, and I will be seeing you all on the next video. Deck profile down below. Enjoy.